Hello and welcome back. Today we will look at programming and how to combine behaviors or functions from multiple bots into one. Before we get into the specifics of today's project, a quick reminder: if all of this is new to you, if you want to learn more about testing bots or developing bots, we have a bunch of guides helping you to get started from scratch. And you'll also find a link to an overview of our guides in the video description. With that out of the way, let's have a look at today's project. Eva here has a question, and this is related to the game EVE Online. He has been using a combat bot in that game, and he wants to extend that bot's behavior. And he's also found another bot for the same game that already contains the behavior that he's looking to add to his combat bot. In his post here on the forum, we have the links to these two bots. This way we get to the catalog entries for each of these. So here's the entry for the combat bot, and here in the sources section we can navigate directly to the bot's program code. So let's open this in an editor. Today I'm gonna use this more general Elm editor. I guess in a few months we will see an integrated editor in the Reactor UI, so you'll have a more direct way to enter the editor. So let's load the combat bot and open the bot Elm module. To extend this bot's behavior, we can just insert new functions here in the program code. And now the question is, where do we do that? I mean, we have hundreds of lines of codes here. How do we know where to insert this behavior? Usually we have a recording from an actual session where the bot was running, either live or in a simulation. And using that recording, we will find and see exactly which parts of the program code were being used in the instance where we want to change that behavior. So usually we have the recording guiding us and showing us where to make the change. In this case, we don't have the recording, so we are just gonna guess where to put it. When we look into the guides on this framework for EVE Online, we find the entry point. This is the function that defines all of the bot's behavior, and one way to search right place to insert would be starting from here. So here we branch depending on whether we are docked or not. And in our case, what we're interested in is the branch if the undocking is complete. So we can follow that reference. And this looks like the part that we are interested in. So this is what we would find starting from the recording. I would see that we need to change this part. We can write something new in here, and because we're using a typed programming language, when we compile this, we are getting some feedback from the compiler, and it's gonna tell us if there's a problem. In this case, there's a type mismatch. This value here doesn't make sense in this case because it's expecting a description of what it should do next. We are gonna search for the behavior in the other bot's program code and copy it into here. So let's open the other bots using the link from this post. Let's open this in another instance of the editor. So this is the code of the autopilot bot. Again, the question is, which function do we take here? What do we copy from here? Again, the recording, if we have one, guides us. If we don't have one, we can just take the root function here. That should work. So we would copy that over in our combat bot and then insert it here. And let's see what the compiler has to say about this. So now we get this naming error. It's pointing out that this name is not really defined. It's not declared in our project. This is to be expected. We are in a different context now. And what we are going to do is we just copy the referenced function here, or the referenced values here from the other project. And you can see this is a recursive process. We've got more naming errors. And so we just repeat this process until we have resolved all of these naming errors. Okay, still getting more naming errors for undeclared values or functions. So let's copy and paste more of that. So here in this case, it's a declaration that comes from another module. It's just being exposed here from the app framework. Do they use the same framework? So apparently the frameworks are different. In this particular case, most of the declarations will be the same in both of these frameworks. So one way to go about it is just copy the references over and see how that works. So it seems like all this copying takes several minutes. I think this is something we might automate in the future. Probably we'll have some tool that lets you specify a function to copy, and then it'll pull all the dependencies automatically. Okay, so now it looks like all the naming errors are gone. Seems like we've copied all of the dependencies in our combat bot, and we are left with this type mismatch here. The type does not yet quite match. Here, this is a bit misleading because in this case, this here is already covered by this one here. So decision path node in this case is an alias for this. So we already have this part, and we only need to supply this argument on the left. So let's add that. We need to find this bot decision context, and this is common in these kinds of bots. It's common to thread this true to many or all of the functions computing the next action, the next decision. And here we find it as context in the existing function. Okay, compiler says no errors. It's now in a state that you can actually run the bot. I guess we'll have some kind of button here to start the bot directly from the editor. For now, you can export to a zip archive, and when you've downloaded that archive, you can just point the BotLab client to this archive to run the bot. That works as well. I'm also gonna add a link to this state here to the forum thread, so you can also follow this link to get to this new bot directly. All right, I think that covers today's question. If you have any other questions about developing or testing bots, keep them coming. Until then, fly safe and have fun.